Looks like Jeff's ready, whenever you are. 10 seconds according to that clock on the wall.
My computer says 7 o'clock.
All right.
7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. If you could stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Wells, you have the roll.
I do.
Okay, item 2, adoption of the agenda. I believe the only change we have is some of the additional bills that were sent out. Is there anything else?
Just, we put a revised agenda at your table based upon what I emailed on Monday, or Jackie had emailed on Monday. So, new business adds the consider revisions to mask requirement.
That was sent to everybody within 24 hours, so we should be good. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so take a motion to adopt the agenda with the change.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda without those changes.
Second. A motion second to adopt the agenda with the changes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. List of consent agenda items. So item A, minutes of past meetings, B, financial report, item C, summary list of bills, plus the additional list that's sent out. I had one question on the bills that was answered earlier with there was a $5,000 bill from Central International, and that was for some bus repairs. So 'tis the season for that, and get us ready for next year. Anybody else have any questions?
There was a correction for, I had to void the check, for whatever, I had a double invoice on Instructure. If you see that in there, was for $5,000, actually voided that whole check, and the bill was actually only for $2,500, so for some reason they got double batched, so just so you see that in there a couple different times.
Jackie, I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was just, looked like a typo. There was like 3 words that were repeated. If I find it, I'll let you know. Not a big deal. Well, it didn't change the substance of any of it.
Do you remember in the first set of minutes, or?
I don't remember. Keep
Okay.
going. I'll find it.
All right, good. Sit tight till we get to that one, Dave. Is that okay?
Jackie, it is on the April 12, the second page at the very bottom. I should say the second paragraph from the bottom says, in personnel, DeWitt move to approve, DeWitt move to approve.
It was just extra special.
Yeah, so, not a big deal, just
Thank you.
minor. Not good.
If there is not any other questions on those items, I'd entertain a motion for approval. So moved.
Second?
A motion and second to approve items A, B, and C, including the additional list of bills presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item 4, recognition. Congratulations to student, staff, and community. Mr. Jordan.
There is additional page for any of our guests. There's a typed out page there for you. A lot of recognition achievements this month as we kind of wind down the school year. First and foremost, our 54 graduates of the class of 2021. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Engelman, but I think you announced $680,000 in scholarships that were earned by the 54 graduates. So pretty healthy sum for them as they look to advance their educational or occupational goals. We want to tip our caps to them. So congratulations to the graduates. Hats off to Mr. Engelman for getting the kids ready for the ceremony on Sunday. So second item there is our Math B. If you remember, last month we recognized 6th grade Math B participants. I'd like to also add the 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th grade students. Maisie Odakoven in the 4th grade was 4th place in the 4th grade division. And each grade level, there's about 100 students that participate in Math B, so 4th place overall. 5th grade, Jacob Van Artsen, 2nd place, so that's outstanding. And then Ethan Hugendorn, 6th place. Last month, like I said, 6th grade as a team placed 8th. Ellen Harms, Logan Koob, Caleb Quaker, and Egan Peterson. And then Egan was 8th place overall in 6th grade. 7th grade, Lillian Jorth was in 7th place. And then the 8th graders finished 4th as a team. Jacob Downard, Sam Christensen, Ephraim Hofer, and Quentin Sproke as that team. And then Jacob was 2nd overall in that 8th grade group. And then Sam Christensen, Alexandra Flores, Avery Harmon, and Liza Jans all tied for 8th. So individual competitions and then team-based competitions. So congratulations to all those students. Special thanks to Mrs. Baker, Dale Jansma, Kyler Huseman, and Mike Groen for working with those kids. And really, Mrs. Baker did the heavy lifting on kind of testing those kids, and it was all virtual this year. And so competed locally, submitted those scores, and then for the team-based competition, they did it via Zoom. So hats off to all those kids. May term, I know Mr. Engelman's going to report on May term stuff from the high school, but Mr. Allen wanted me to recognize Grant Hazelhoff and Eli Jansma for the robotics course. Those two modified the robot, the controller, and all that stuff that went along with it for Jordan Rath, one of our special needs students. I'd love to show you the video, but it's a little grainy. But Jordan was able to run the controller, run it through the course, and do the task. That's awesome. So really nice collaboration between Grant and Eli. So, and then obviously Mr. Allen kind of supervising those kids and teaching that coursework. Art show place winners for Northwest Community College Art Show. Eliora Enriquez and Maddie Reeby, first place in their particular divisions. Second place, Carson Altman, Lauren Langholt, and Karma Van Omen. And then third place, Matt Langholt, Josh Reeby, and Cooper Spees. So again, all the, not only the Siouxland Conference schools, but many War Eagle schools and a couple Lakes Conference schools all submitted pieces, and then they were judged by, I think, the faculty at NCC. So congratulations to those 8 students. We were talking about golf before the meeting started, but girls golf team, first and second team, Tatum Jensen was first team, as well as Isabel Schneiderman. Second team, Emma Baker, Jana Groen, and Cameron Van Holland. And then those girls won the regional meet on Monday. They'll play next Monday down at Holstein. So we wish them luck. If they should finish first or second down there, they would advance to the state tournament the following week. And then, again, if they were individually to qualify, you have to be, after the state teams qualify, then they take the next 2 individuals. So anybody that might tie for the second best, essentially the best scores after those team scores, could go individually. And that's what Mason did here last Friday. We hosted the sectional meet for boys. Unfortunately, we finished 3rd as a team, but Mason was again in the tied for 2nd for the best score after Boyden Hall and I forget who was the runner-up school. But Mason will be moving on to play this Friday. Hopefully he plays well enough to go to the state tournament on the boys' side. And then state track qualifiers, we got listed on the back, 4x4, 4x8, and distant medley for the girls. So Whitney Wagmeister, Ashlyn Davis, Afton Schlumbum, Reagan Van Wy. And then in the 4x8, we add Brooklyn Kroll and Mary Schriever. Distance medley has the same group of girls. Now, there's some alternates that participate and attend as well. So they'll have a couple more girls going along with tomorrow, or not tomorrow.
Yep.
Tomorrow, leave tomorrow, compete Thursday, Friday, and hopefully Saturday in the finals. And then on the boys' side, Daniel Schriever in the mile run, Gable Van Beek in the 110 hurdles, And then the 4x8 team, Jay Schrick, Carter Spees, Daniel Schriever, and Landon Weiler. So, good representation, both golf and track this spring. Staff recognition. First week of May is Teacher Appreciation Week, and really hats off to all of our teachers and support staff members for all they've done this entire school year, from their flexibility and perseverance just to the professionalism with all the challenges and obstacles with COVID. And like we studied a couple weeks ago with our student achievement data, really feel good about where we're at academically. A lot of those learning loss concerns that we have were really kind of put to bed when we looked at that ISASS data. Like any year, we have areas for growth, but maybe not as concerning as what I thought it might have been. So hats off to all the teachers, paras, everybody for their work this year. And then I did want to put a shout out in here for Brenda Van Huffwagen. You know, this month of May, she's busy working with elementary and middle school students on human growth and development, sexual education, healthy choices, risky behaviors. You know, those conversations for us as parents are challenging. So for Brenda to step in and do that with, about 300 of our students is really much appreciated. So hats off to her. Community recognition, after prom and after grad committee members, Jason Chase, Jason Engelman, Chad Gertis, Heather Hymanson, Jessica Jensen, Kelly Metzger, Jen Peterson, Scott Postma, Amy Schulte, and Jackie Wells. Both of those events here in the last month went off very smoothly for our kids, and nice, safe alternatives after those events. So thanks for everybody. Thanks for the fundraising and all the gifts really we're giving back to our kids. So lots of money raised to keep kids engaged on those evenings. If you were able to tune into the awards, scholarship and senior awards assembly last Friday, $90,000 from our local families and alumni and community-based organizations awarded $90,000 in scholarships. So pretty outstanding for our community to give back to our kids. So we want to make sure everybody is appreciated for those gifts. In the same vein, the Booster Club at their April meeting awarded a little over $18,000 to our athletic programs. You know, baseball and softball are going on right now, ranging anywhere from bats and equipment for them to volleyball team I know is going to go to the Kansas University team camp over the summer. Just a host of different things that the Booster Club is giving back to our kids, and then thereby allowing the athletic budget to focus really in on the day-to-day operations of the athletics. And Booster Club mans the concession stands, but they also do different fundraisers throughout the course of the year. So we want to make sure that we thank them. In the same vein, the school foundation met in April, or excuse me, earlier this month in May, and awarded over $10,000 in our Lyon grants to teachers for various projects and innovative programming that they're going to be implementing with kids. So, you know, add all that stuff up, there's, you know, over $130,000 coming back to our kids and teachers and programs here at school, whether it's scholarships or athletics or our academic programming. So by all means, thanks to all those individuals that helped give back. And then the last thing is, hopefully you found on your tables a certificate. May is also School Board Recognition Month, so thanks to the 5 of you guys for your leadership and guidance over the course of the last year. Unpaid position, volunteer position, but you guys take a lot of phone calls and answer a lot of my questions throughout the course of the year. I just want to say thank you, and Thanks for your continued service. So there's a lot this month, so
Take a breath, Mr. George.
that's right.
Thank you. Congratulations to those folks. Moving on to item 5, communications, public participation on non-agenda items. I don't think anybody out there wants to speak? Anybody signed up, Joel? No? Okay. Item B, correspondence. Mr. George?
I didn't have any correspondence to share this month.
Okay, move on to principal reports. Mr. Harmon, summer school.
Right, I thought it was a good month to update what we're currently trying to accomplish with the summer. The article I placed in front of you talks about pretty much 4 different programs that we're trying, 3 of them, well, so 2 of them that are existing, with a different component on the 3rd, and the 4th being something new. So, we have returning staff who are undertaking our June summer reading, math, or STEM programs, grades 4 and below for next year's students. With those programs, you can see what they're trying to do. We are going to base it out of our school library, and then once a week we'll head down to the public library. We have had it there in the past. Our numbers are just getting a little bigger, which is something we really are happy with, but at the same time, you know, we want to make sure we keep those kids intermixed or going through those doors all summer long. That's our biggest goal for that program, is to keep that public library used and frequented often. So that's our first program. We are trying to work on a more of an independent model for those students entering grades 5 and 6 this year. We'll see, we've placed out a questionnaire and working through those to see if we can't get more kids there. Even if parents didn't sign up, they're always encouraged to come to any of our sessions that we have. That's always important. Try to put it in between summer rec and swim time or pool time, so that those kids also have somewhere to go in those mornings. So really excited right now. We have over 50 kids signed up for the grades 4 and below. Not as big a numbers for grades 5 and 6, but we hope that continues to pick up. So we'll start those programs here right after school gets done that first week of June. In the second year of it, we have our EL summer program. Mr. Cruz works with myself. We write a grant every year to the AEA and also the state to continue working with those. You can see those dates there that we're trying to match up with family schedules, those types of things. We have about 15 kids that come in, and his schedule is that Monday through Thursday are more academic type days where they play games, work on schedules. Of course, they have an activity that they do every day. Then Friday, he takes those kids out to different places. He goes to La Jolla twice, brings in a petting zoo. I mean, just to make those local connections for those kids as well. So that is a great program for him. He does feed them a meal every day, and works with some of our local vendors for that as well, just to help those families out, as sometimes they don't have as many opportunities as the rest of us. So, and then the other program is our New Year orientation. We're looking at using kids, or looking at kids in August who are what we call double flake students, who are not meeting late grade level benchmarks. So we're working with trying to identify those kids, and have the parents work with them for 2 weeks in August, just getting them geared up, ready for the school year, so that we maybe give them a jump start to the year. That's kind of what we're looking at for the summer in a nutshell. Any questions? So I will share a report in August, just with numbers, or September, and just show you how things went, and we'll continue with that. All right? Okay. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Engelmann, May term.
Yeah, all right, I dropped off full documents there with you. One of the very first pages is a quick update, kind of some information as far as May term is concerned. And the second page is the courses that we offered the spring session. So May term, if you look on that first page, we do have quite a few courses that actually continue over from second semester. So a lot of our core classes, especially in the area of math, actually do carry over into that additional 20-day period. Some of the required courses that we ask our students to take, workplace readiness, service learning, navigator, careers in state and local government, continue to be in there. As you look at May term, trying to figure out the exact date it was established has been a little difficult, but as early early to middle 1990s is when it actually got put into practice. You know, it occupies the last 20 days of the student calendar. Over the years, major course offerings, they change and evolve as the staff changes, and also as the student interests and passions, you know, things come up, and we try to capitalize on those things. So, you know, this is a great opportunity. You know, you're not gonna be able to get it out of a couple paragraphs here that I put together, but it is really a quality opportunity for students to get out of their comfort zone a little bit, to get out of their norm, and pursue some other learning opportunities that they wouldn't be afforded to during the regular school year. We got quite a few kids, actually the majority of our kids are taxing themselves, which is great, challenging themselves with AP classes, college classes, kind of sticking to that, you know, those math courses, which is great, and really challenging themselves that way. But this gives some of those kids even an opportunity to take a breath, step into a basic auto care class with Mr. Engel, get to experience him, or experience Mr. Rockhill out of the farm management course on the FFA farm. There's some things on there that maybe aren't as rigorous as others. You would see something like strategic gaming, outdoor recreation. Those are some more enjoyable classes. But the goal of those things is to teach them life skills and habits and get them to enjoy some of those things and they can carry forward well past their graduation years. So, you know, I know May term is always, it seems to be a hot button issue at times. I would say that I've been in favor of it since I've got here. I've seen a lot of quality collaborative experiences out of that. I've seen a lot of quality student experiences out of that. Some of those that I highlighted down below, the Central Line Broadcasting Network, you know, in a district that's really trying to pave the way for some of the broadcasting things that we do, getting students more involved in that. Someone like Dalton Cordell played a huge role in that class, and they did a big highlight film that is, I believe, available on our website. If not, it will be shortly. But entertaining, but yet informative. The kids had a really good time. You know, the May term play obviously is going on tonight, so another opportunity for our kids to get on stage who might not have that opportunity. So that should actually be baking of pastries, not baking of tasties. I apologize, that was on me. The baking of pastries.
Same thing.
Same thing, they're tasty pastries, so, you know, basic auto care, I think even someone like Hayden Hymanson hinted on that in her speech, you know, how to fix her car, check her oil, check her tires. Those are things that they get exposed to. Workplace readiness gives them a great intro into what work study might be like. They interview people in the community, they you know, resume, they go through an application, they go through all the ins and outs of trying to seek and obtain a job. So there's a lot of great things that come from May term. It can sometimes be a little unstructured, I would give you that. But the kids absolutely enjoy it. I've heard nothing but great things when I talk to the students about what they're getting out of it. The teachers, you know, it gives us that little bit of jolt at the end of the year. When we're getting a little exhausted, students, staff, everybody, and it gives them something to kind of get back up in the morning for a little bit more so than if we were to continue with the second semester, per se. I think I hit on a lot of it. ACT prep's also a big one, I should have said that too, where they go over test-taking strategies with Mrs. Chrome. That seems to have paid dividends with our scores. So I think a lot of kids will take that. 7th and 8th grade do get involved too. We do switch their exploratories the last 20 days. They get exposed to a few other electives that they don't in the regular school year. Questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
With their, the courses that continue into May term, so how does that work with getting a grade? Do they get just a regular quarter and semester grade then, or do you have another grade because I'm May term?
Yeah, there is a formula. May term does receive its own grade. So even if you were in Algebra 2, you got your credit for that semester 2, you got your grade for that, but you do take, we don't release those until May term's over, but you do get a separate grade. So May term classes are worth a quarter for each period. So those that have 2 periods are worth half credit. And I think your GPA is, you know, the formula dictates that, so it's like half of your potential points that you would get in a normal semester. So there is some grading to it, which again helps everybody stay accountable, and there is a lot of work to be done. I know in our state and local government, they really, you're getting a lot of work in there. I mean, because they're covering a lot of materials, and same with those classes that carry over. They want to continue to get through all the standards and benchmarks. So, yeah, but there is a grading formula. I can't tell you exactly the percentages of how, you know, get an A- to a B+, it's like 1,000% on your QGPA.
Is there a reason, like, I was trying to understand, like, the reason why it, like, those core classes just aren't just a normal grade instead of getting split out?
You know, I think a lot has to do with just how the
Is
JMC,
it just easier?
yeah, just how
Or something
JMC
just
allows
works?
us to do that. It won't let us do some and not do
Okay.
others. So we either kind of, that's how the scheduling works, how we can create our schedule and get kids into classes. Yeah. Yeah. Mrs. Harmon and I work pretty closely with that. She, you know, dabbles with that a little bit more than I do with the grading and scheduling of it, but I believe JMC provides a little bit of restraint when it comes to stuff like that.
That makes sense, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
Yep.
Moving on, item B, Mrs. Wells, anything on your end?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Anything from board members? Okay. Mr. Jorth?
In your packet, I've got the updated roof inspection, roof audit report. Got an action item later in regards to repairs, but I kind of wanted to break this out for you, kind of give you a projection for what some of those roof repairs would be going forward. I think we budgeted $175,000 for roof repairs for this year out of our PEPL save budgets. And, you know, we're gonna authorize about $10,000 just in repairs. And so when Phil from ARS was here and got this report, I kind of wanted to look at that and really start to hone that in, knowing that we, dealing with declining enrollment, we've got different buckets of money. How are we going to use that effectively over the course of the next 5 years? And so our roofs generally are in really good condition. And what I've tried to do is those portions of the roofs that are gonna need the repairs won't be due in 2024, but really they're gonna come due at the same time. So we're gonna probably wanna look at doing a roof ahead of what he's projecting, just so that we can stagger it over the course of the next 5 to 7 years. So I tried to kind of give you my summary of what you actually have in the report itself. If you want to dig deeper into that and you've got questions, let me know. I know Joel and Carrie are on our buildings and grounds team, but I think it's important for the entire board to kind of understand where we're at with that. ARS has been really nice to work with. They give us a nice thorough report. But as you can see there, some of that stuff's going to start coming due. If you got other questions on that, happy to go through it in a little bit more detail. And then I had Curtis update our technology budget and kind of give you guys a picture of where we're going with our tech purchases over the course of where we were this year, where we're going to be for next year, and kind of what we're projecting for 2022. The big number on here is our smart board upgrades. So that number's kind of embedded in the middle. So in the past, what we've budgeted has been about $14,000 for projectors and smart board replacements, okay? The technology with our smart boards has evolved over the last 5 years. And so they've moved away from the boards that are, what we currently have into more touchscreen TVs. And so $60,000 basically will get us a new board in every kindergarten through 6th grade classroom over this summer. And Curtis is comfortable, he can get all those boards installed. And then next summer, we'd focus on the 7 through 12. So those are where those numbers are coming with. If you remember previously, a lot of these tech purchases we were taking from casino monies. We've got the room in our PEPL account and save accounts where we shifted that. On top of that, we were going to be using those funds from the casino funds for curriculum purchases. Well, with our new federal allocation with ESSER 3, which we're getting, a lot of those curriculum purchases, we're gonna be able to use those ESSER dollars from. So we've got a little cushion in our budget when it comes to some of these PEPAL purchases, and that's why we felt like now's the time to begin looking at the smart board upgrades. So that's really what I wanted to kind of clue everybody into. Otherwise, kind of the rotation for the one-to-one devices is laid out here for you, so you can kind of see where we're going with that. And then teacher machines, Curtis and Jeff have done a nice job of creating that rotational spending, so it's pretty consistent year to year.
Any questions for Mr. Jordan on either of those? Okay. On to item E. Mr. P, science curriculum pilot and curriculum purchase recommendation.
I just wrote a short narrative on kind of the process of how we came to the result that we came to over the last probably 15 to 18 months probably. The administration allowed a group of teachers to research and visit multiple schools in search of our next pre-K-8 science curriculum. We were looking to unify what we felt was an old science curriculum with many overlaps, gaps, and lack of connection to the NGSS, which is our next generation science standards, which Iowa adopted. We visited T area schools where we visited many classrooms at different levels. We're using the program Project Lead the Way. Even though that Project Lead the Way seemed to be a great program for T area, we felt there were issues in terms of size of classes, staffing, potential scheduling issues that didn't seem to fit Central Lyon. It's a great program, but it just didn't seem to fit. Talked with other districts using different programs like Fisher Science, Mystery Science for levels pre-K2. McGraw-Hill and Glencoe seem to be somewhat watered down and lack the rigor and relevance we as teachers want our students to work with. We narrowed it down to 2 science programs, both linked to the INGSS, Iowa Next Generation Standards of Science, and the rigor and relevance to aid our students to become independent learners was Elevate, and Amplify. Our first pilot was Amplify, seemed to include many opportunities to link literacy into our science. Students were asked questions why to expand and reflect on different scenarios dealing with a particular science topic. Amplify lacked those opportunities for students to be scientists in the classroom. Teachers and students would have very few choices within the Amplify platform. Amplify did not link to our Canvas platform as well, which was a big negative to us. To make the curriculum complete, teachers would have to expand lessons by embedding student-based activities, which students learn best from, into their respective classrooms. I don't think they would get as much of that as we would with the one we chose here shortly. K2 teachers would not have the time to do such tasks due to the load that they already currently carry with Amplify. Amplify makes it tough for teachers to individualize assignments for students and also the activities for students needing the support to remediate some of the assignments. Although sometimes necessary, becomes very, very repetitive over the course of the 6 weeks and really monotonous for both the teachers and the students. And like I said, it was only about a 4 to 6 week period where we were able to pilot that particular curriculum / program. So here's some reasons why the second pilot, Elevate, is by Savas Learning. Pearson Prentice Hall was bought out by this company. This company also is responsible for writing the ISAFS test. So that's a good link for us in terms of our testing procedures that we have to go through every year. And this would be the choice for the science team going forward. Elevate had the same amount of positive literacy connections to their science curriculum, their science program, Elevate's K-5 program also flows directly into the 6-8 tiered curriculum Elevate provides. Students have multiple paths within a single lesson to plan a quality, unique lesson and ultimately units. Students have given opportunities, are given opportunities to create their own models, their demonstrations, experiments. Teachers have the ability to edit, to editable pre-assessments, lesson quizzes and post-tests. Some of these assessments are graded by the Elevate platform and will link directly into Canvas. Interactivities provide virtual student manipulation and reading checks to study real places with scenarios studied within the program. So it's not just pictures and stuff like that. They're going to actually investigate. They have a quest that they can go to that kind of links to every single lesson, and at the end you're going to have a quest challenge. Again, teachers have to do those types of things. These events are updated, so like some of those scenarios that I talked about, sometimes when you get an older curriculum, you're going to be dealing with 1970 stuff, instead of here 1990 per se, or 2021. I'm way behind, but 2021, it's 2021, we don't want to be talking about 1999 stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of was getting at there, sorry. So they're updated automatically and uploaded to the program. The tech guys don't have to worry about it. It goes right into the students' licenses. Let's see here. Professional help from Elevate was easy to access. They were more than willing and very, very helpful throughout our pilot process. I don't see that being any different when we when and if we would purchase such a program. Team meetings can be easily set up and talk directly to the specialist. Elevate provides an online e-text and a hard copy book for each student. They get a new book every year, so they can actually have online access to the same stuff in a book. They make you have the book along with, and I suggest getting the books as well because they're free. So that's a bonus as well. But they get to have the choice. Can I work online? Yes. Can you work within the, I call it the e-text book? Yes. So it makes no difference to me. Other teachers might have different feelings about that. I know that the lower elementary does not want more workbooks, but since we're getting free, I will store them, and if they would want them, then we would be able to get those out easily. And if all of a sudden our computers aren't working, we can go, our network, and we can go right to the books. We wouldn't have any downtime. For resource students, there's a lot of remediation possibilities to edit their quizzes, their tests, any possible worksheets or lab questions that are needed. Enrichment pieces are also embedded into the program to provide some above and beyond study for some topics. I don't know what else I can put out there. I'm sure I'm missing something along the way, but that's the meetings that we've had through all the different teachers. The other parts of the team were a kindergarten teacher, a first grade teacher, a third grade teacher, and myself. We were able to get teacher manuals for all teachers, so they could actually get a little bit of an overview of what it would look like. Other than that, our recommendation would definitely be go with Elevate or the Savvis Learning platform going forward. It is a 6-year commitment. We were able to whittle it down from 71,000 as I was talking with some of the other teachers and what they needed and what they don't need per se, and there was a lot of fluff in there. We're actually able to get it down about $11,000 down to around $60,000 with all the essentials that we would need to be successful teachers in the classroom and create those independent learners that we want to build.
One of the big things Jerry and the pilot group talked about is with the science curriculum specifically, we want kids doing science.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want them just reading about it or watching a video. We want them getting dirty with experiments. And so that's one of the things, if you actually looked at the quote, each grade level has basically a kit that goes with it. So we will have some ongoing expenses year after year, but we're hoping we're gonna be able to basically have a resource list based off of what comes in that kit year one. And so we don't necessarily have to go back to Pearson to buy all the manipulatives and all the stuff they need for all the different experiments. There might be some that we need to because it's specific to that particular experiment, but we're hoping that we're basically be able to restock that ourselves. And again, the ongoing costs we're able to keep down.
Just to piggyback on that, I went through the item list with every single teacher and marked off what I could provide, what they had in their classrooms and what they needed. And the number was not, we wouldn't need to revisit the costs with a lot of things.
Yep.
Now, a lot of these things, Dollar General, something like that, if we would need to buy something. A lot of household items, cutting wood, I mean, I got a pretty good stash in going.
The other nice thing, this connects well to what Rochelle and Bill are using at the high school level. And so when we started this process, that was a lot of the feedback from Bill was the Pearson or Savas materials does connect with Canvas. And as we learned, last year, that was an important feature, and our elementary teachers are coming on board with Canvas. But then also Pearson, like Jerry alluded to, writes the Iowa assessments, the ISASPs. And so a lot of the online assessment tools that are embedded in this program are the same format, the same types of questions that kids are going to see when they take those ISASPs every year. And we're hoping that this program will help us kind of build those elementary science scores and hopefully close that achievement gap over the course of the next 6 years.
Their quizzes and tests are extremely difficult. They have to do a lot of application to different scenarios. And it relates to a situation or a scenario. And my quiz scores are quite low, but being able to monitor that from a pre-test to a post-test, it's amazing, it really is. I mean, we started topic number 6, and the readiness was 3% across the board. I mean, that's what it was we ended up at about 72%. So, I mean, that's quite a difference in from 4 to 5 lessons within that particular topic. And one more thing about that, I'm sorry, I'm taking a little bit too much time probably. The topics for all the different grade levels, they vary. So I have 10 topics in the 6th grade, and Mandy would in 7th grade and 8th grade. But down there in the K2, there might be 4 topics, because they know that down in that area, it's more observations, it's more kind of an overview of what science is all about. And the time factor, of course, as well down there with all the reading and the early math and reading stuff that's going on as well. And then they get a few more topics, and then we start, and they are all NGSS monitored as well. That was one of the things that we were really struggling with, is getting all those standards covered with our old stuff. Everybody was just kind of picking and choosing, and we needed to get some sort of fluid, no gaps, and no overlap type of situation, I felt.
So yeah, I want to thank Jerry for really leading that. He's been great working with, Jessica Herman and Allie Bixman were really elementary pilots along with Jerry.
Paige Metzger was also a part of that group. Bill was a part of it early with our tours of some of the different schools that we went to.
So it's 60,000 is kind of a one-time purchase, and that's for 6 years.
Yep.
And that gets you the new textbooks and all the
Online,
online
Yep.
updates and everything, and then, there might be
all
some-
the experiment stuff is a one-time purchase, and like Jerry said, we were able to kind of cut down on some of those things because we felt like we had some of that stuff, and then over time, we're gonna need to continue to replace and purchase those things, but hopefully, again, we figure out what those things that we need versus just buying their stock
I did some estimating and I figured it at about $18 to $22 a year to teach the kids that each kid in our school system science.
Pretty thorough process. You know, the process we use with the science team will start now with the math team. So over the course of the next 2 years, we'll have a math team evaluate and look at our curriculum. You know, our goal was to send that science team to a national conference. You know, didn't happen.
It was in Boston, right?
It was gonna be in Boston, right?
Yeah.
You know, April of last year. And, you know, the math team will do that same process. We'll go to a national conference, we'll look at what other schools are doing. We'll obviously look at, is what we're doing right now good enough? And then 2 years from now, we'll come back with a recommendation for math materials.
Perfect. Thanks, Mr. P.
That
Okay, move on to item 7, under old business with item A, second reading of new policy 606.1, class size, class grouping.
So that, you know, I apologize, that was kind of embedded in my policy items. But if you remember, you know, just this policy reiterates that the board will look at class size and ultimately determine that on an annual basis.
There's no questions on that, with the second reading, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
A motion second to approve the second reading of new policy 606.1, class size and class grouping. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item 8, new business. Item B, consider revisions to mask requirement based on new guidance from the Iowa Department of Public Health.
So I included in your packet the letter we received on Friday afternoon from Iowa Department of Public Health. And then I kind of highlighted the 2 sentences that I thought were most pertinent. 4th and 5th paragraphs have that. Public Health has adjusted their guidance to recommend that schools treat COVID-19 like any other childhood illness. And then revising the guidance that if we should have a student or a staff member test positive for COVID, they should individually be excluded, but those that might have been in close contact should no longer be required to stay home, regardless of mask usage. So based upon that new guidance from Public Health would be my recommendation at this time to eliminate our current mask requirement for students and staff. Realize we've only got 3 more school days left of this school year, but we got baseball and softball going on right now, and you know, when they're traveling for those events and all the different practices and things that we have going on, that would be my recommendation.
Feels like we just talked about this.
At length, if I remember.
Yeah. I believe you are correct.
Every other month.
It's pretty hard to keep up with stuff as it feels like it's changing pretty rapidly. But maybe not so much in our community, so to speak, but you know, nationwide and worldwide, there's recommendations are changing and everything else every day. So,
Yep.
is there any discussion from the board on this one?
So this essentially would take us into next fall as well.
Yep.
Because it would eliminate all mask requirements.
Correct.
Requirements.
Yep.
And that's essentially what and that's all our requirements really are at this point.
Correct. So, you know, when we met 2 weeks ago, it was continuing to require masks where you couldn't socially distance, but relaxed it in the hallways and our common spaces because of the 15-minute close contact definition. But this would, again, treat it like any other illness, chickenpox or head lice or whatever. That student that might be positive for those would be asked to stay home, but we would inform families if they were in close contact, and then they could make that choice on their own if they wanted to quarantine for, 7 days or 10 days.
So that's something I didn't see in here, maybe it is in there, about any requirement to self-quarantine or quarantine if they are positive for it.
Yeah, so if individuals that are positive would be, that's what they're intending by excluded. So we would continue to follow their 7 days exclusion for the individual that is positive. And then in that 5th paragraph that goes over to the back, it said, parents, when there is a positive case, parents should be given information around exposure in order to make their own informed decision regarding risk. So,
And as a school, you are able to give that information?
yeah, we don't necessarily say this staff member, this student has tested positive. It's just somebody in your
this
child's classroom
or something?
has tested positive. And then if you would like to stay home, then we'll continue to provide the distance learning materials, and the same guidance would continue to exist. If you have a negative test, you can come back to school after 7 days. If you choose not to get tested, then it's a 10-day. Continues to kind of be the recommendation from public health.
Should things ramp up in the summer or whatever future it is, everybody else's crystal ball is about as good as mine, but we certainly have the opportunity to come back and help control things again if we have to.
I think the data that, the CDC and public health is looking at is the vaccine is effective, right? So even on the variants that have popped up, whether it's Moderna, Pfizer, or even Johnson & Johnson, the efficacy that they saw in the trials has been confirmed now that more and more people are being vaccinated, and those numbers from trials, I think, were like 30,000 people. Well, now we've got millions of people that are kind of confirming that in reality. So if something should change and a different variant should make its way and we have to revisit this, we'll do that, when we need to, but hopefully we won't.
For sure. So I don't know what you folks think, but I think the motion should be just to eliminate all of the current mask requirements of the district. You agree?
That's what my recommendation is.
So if someone is ready, we would entertain that motion. Motion by Mr. Postman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jones. We have a motion and second to remove all of the current mask requirements here at school. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item C, did you want to take these three together based on your recommendation, on your letter?
Yeah,
Memo, we should say.
again, 3 shared contracts. The first is the nursing contract with Lyon Health Services of Lyon County. As you can see in the memo there, increasing the total hours from 956 to 1014, so there's about a $3,000 increase, but at least we're, again, Brenda would be here from 8 until 3:45, and then on Wednesdays until 2:30. So while kids are here, we would have a nurse. Right now, she's been leaving at 3 o'clock each day, and sometimes those things happen at the end of the day, so it'd just be nice to have her all day. So I think it's well worth that $3,000. Shared transportation with George Little Rock from 60/40 to 80/20, so basically 1 day a week for Jeremy. So again, this year, I think we're getting about $35,000 in reimbursement from George. That would be cut in half from 40% down to 20%.
Yep, I just sent the invoices right under 35 because of the cell phone.
Yep. And then this next school year, because we started it this year, the operational sharing is 1 year behind. So we would start seeing basically the 5 student cost per pupil this next year, and then continuing until we would ever end that agreement with George.
The percentage of sharing does not impact, however, the operational
Correct.
sharing dollars from the state, correct?
Yep, the minimum is 20%, and that's what we would be at with this going forward. And then the human resources with Rock Valley would be the holder of the contract, but then Amanda also serves West Lyon in that role as well. And nothing's really changing in that contract, just a minimal, I think it's a 1.9% increase for salary on that. I did give you an updated contract, what they had sent, included in your packet, for whatever reason, wasn't accurate, so that's what I've given you. The salary numbers stay the same. So what was in the packet and I just gave you tonight is the same salary numbers. So I'm comfortable with all three of those positions in one motion if you want to make it that way.
Sure. Can do that.
Say, I did notice that we've been advertising for a bus driver. Has there been any moving or applications or things on a bus driver?
Bus drivers have been difficult for us to fill, yep. So we're continuing to look. We might have to get creative if we aren't able to identify a bus driver and do either a job share for staff members that currently are on staff, whether it's support staff members or even teachers, where certain times of the year they might drive the morning bus route, but not the afternoon, so we could have a job share in that instance. Or like Matt Bixaman and Todd Nath right now do a job share, where 1 month one drives, the next month the other person drives. But we do have some teachers and some individuals in town that they might only be able to do mornings, but not afternoons, or vice versa. So if we aren't able to find somebody with a schedule that accommodates a morning and afternoon route, that's a high likelihood.
Yeah, no, that's tricky. That's been ongoing since we've been board members. Like, since I've been a board member, it's just been
Yep.
difficult to fill. So, I'm looking for ideas, was curious, I saw it on the sign when I drive by, bring my kids to daycare, whatever, so.
Yeah, we've been trying to advertise in creative ways.
Sure.
But ultimately, Jeremy's greatest success is just conversations and face-to-face persistence,
Sure.
quite honestly.
Bribery.
Well, it's paid, it's not like it's not paid, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart like a school board member.
And really, over the last 2 or 3 years, we have really made that incentive even greater to
Yeah.
try and attract people. We are at the top, if not one of the top paying districts for our activity rate and shuttle rates and route rates and everything, but
Sure.
it's still a demanding
Well, it's still
time
time,
frame
it's still
for a
time,
lot
yeah,
of
when
people.
you're
You know,
going.
that afternoon route, I think, is the most challenging, just because there's not a lot of people that can drop everything and drive at 3
Sure.
o'clock.
Yeah.
And that's why I say we might have to go to some of our teachers on
Yeah.
staff and support staff on staff and get their help after school. And so we realize that we do have staff meetings from time to time and professional development on Wednesdays, but we got to get the kids home. And so we're going to have to accommodate that.
In addition to that, you have, special education students that it's required that they're transported, and that's lunch hours and other times too, so just a lot of demand. So spread the word.
I think one last thing, we're already very fortunate that a lot of our coaches do have their CDL. But that might be something that we just have to continue to encourage. And there might come a time where you're required to get your CDL if you're a coach. You guys authorized the purchase of the activity bus. That'll help. but that's not gonna solve football and volleyball and basketball where we've got 20 kids and we can't get them all on that activity bus. So,
Is it included in, is it included in the bump at all as far as what the master schedule looks like? Hey, if you're certified in this, instead of $20 an hour, we'll get you 25. I mean, I'm not, those aren't.
Well, they get their contract plus they're paid as a bus driver.
Yeah, okay. That's what I just want to make sure. I
There's
assume that there's
somewhat paid.
something, but, you know, if there's any way to
Yep, so the hours they're driving
further.
behind the bus, they are paid. Now, when they're there coaching, they're
Well,
paid
yeah,
their contract.
yes,
Yep.
no, I understand that. I
Yeah.
just-
yeah.
Would-
So in that instance, let's say I'm a teacher and I'm leaving at 3:15 to drive a route, we would be essentially double dipping,
Fair.
but we need,
We need
again, to
people to
get
do
the
it.
kids home.
Yeah,
And so if push comes to shove, that's, like Dan Snyder's done that a couple times for us already this year because we've been short.
yeah.
But it's people like Dan that we're gonna need to start leaning on even more if we're unable to find somebody with a schedule that's gonna accommodate the route.
Mr. Town is driving our track kids
Right,
this 3 days, 4 days, because, I mean, then that saves an actual bus driver having to go, he's already going, but he's paid on those hours, he's actually behind the wheel.
how long do people who are newly retired need to be out of the district before they can be rehired?
Well, under COVID, that's been waived,
Okay,
so that's how we were able to use Mark McCarty again already as quickly as we did this year. Mark's one of those people that his business has picked up,
sure.
and so he's, within the last month, you know, Dan Cruz, God bless him, is driving a morning bus route. And that's where we started to already do some of those job sharing things to try to fill those routes.
All right, are there any questions on those 3 contracts in front of us? If there's not, I'd entertain a motion for items C, D, and E.
I'll make a motion for those 3 contracts.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the contracts listed under items C, D, and E. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item F, consider administration salaries.
I don't know if I've got maybe mine out of order here. I don't have the memo right in front of me, but the administrative salaries at the same percentage, 2.25, for the administrative group. You guys have it
So
in there?
page 48,
I've got it.
Page
It's in there
48.
somewhere. so-
Thank
it's
you.
kind of at the back.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep,
So-
there you go, got it out of order.
Overall, $18,000 for administrative salaries, same percentages, teaching staff, same percentages, support staff. The percentages based on each individual is a little bit different. The big change is, since Jeremy's going from 60/40 to 80/20, basically his salary is frozen for this year. And so that allowed us to give a little bit more money to Dan Cruz and then Jeff Jager. They have a little larger percentage than the rest of the administrative team. So, thanks, Dan.
You want to explain the logic behind Jeff's increase?
Yeah, so again, each teacher, we had like $1,280. If he had 2.25, it was a little less than what our teachers were receiving for their incentive. And Jeff does a lot of things, but you know, the best thing that I can equate it to is like a counselor. He's counseling kids, and not only working with kids that might be involved with the juvenile court system. And so we wanted to make sure that his salary increase was similar to the teaching staff.
I've got just 2 questions here.
Yep.
So overall, now that we're essentially at the end of the salary and benefits portion, where did we end up plus minus with new monies, early retirement savings, et cetera?
I'd have to,
Yeah, I didn't put it in there right now, so I don't have that available.
Okay.
Yeah. I can run that, based upon our new hires, our early retirements and all that stuff.
And I'm just curious, because we have our work sessions and we
Yep.
plan, well, how did it turn out versus our plan?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would say the planning session that I presented 225, so if that helps, it should be right on, fairly on track.
Good question.
The other question I had, maybe to the personnel committee, is obviously we haven't had Mr. Jort's review yet, and I'm perfectly fine with setting that salary tonight too, but are you guys on board with that prior to the evaluation, which is gonna happen probably
Next
June?
month. Yep.
Yeah, I am. I mean, the percentage is actually just slightly lower than the rest of the professional staff.
Sure.
So we talked about a number of different things for Mr. Jorth, actually. Ultimately, we felt comfortable with that number. I think, I'm confident, given that the performance I've seen this year at least, that we'll be comfortable ultimately with his performance evaluation
Sure.
to warrant that number.
Yep, and I'm on board with it too, I just wanted to make sure we were okay procedure-wise, so, sounds good to me. That's all the questions I had. So if there's no other questions on that, I'd entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make the motion to approve those administrative salaries.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the administration salaries as listed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item G, consider curriculum purchases as listed.
So, like Mr. Poletsky reported, the Savas science materials, $60,000, $826.99. Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, that's again K-6 math materials. That contract expires at the end of this year, and so that 915 will get us 2 more years. Again, of the online access, the physical books for both students and teachers, and then that math team will be evaluating whether we want to stay with that same HMS curriculum or if we want to transition to something different.
You know when Go Math started, or how long we've had it?
Steve?
7th year.
17, okay.
They have had a revision, we did not update that revision in year 4.
Okay.
So,
Just curious how long curriculums hang out.
Much like the science, a lot of the textbook companies are on a 6-year.
Okay.
And if, the schedule that we're building is 2 years for our core areas. So we're really on that 8-year schedule, much like what we're going to get to with this Go Math materials.
The only difference with Go Math is they lost Flash Player, which was a media format that went down the tubes, and so the majority of our online stuff is fine. It doesn't use Flash. It's just some of the videos and stuff that teachers might have played isn't there, but there's other options. So they still have the option of bringing up the work pages and using their smart boards and all that. So to lose a few videos wasn't really relevant to our instruction.
What about the social studies curriculum? Is that something that's,
Yep, so the reason we're on like a 2-year cycle for each core area is, like next year we'll be implementing science, right? While math will be studying, and then the year after we'll be recommending a purchase. So we're not bombarding, especially our elementary teachers, with multiple curriculums every year. And so this year was the 2nd year of the new literacy curriculum. So they had some intensive PD a year ago, and then this year was their opportunity to implement on their own without coming the very next year with another math or science or social studies. Now, I'm glad you bring up social studies because again, these ESSER dollars that we're getting, the time is now to purchase curriculum materials. And so in the fall, we'll put a social studies team together and really get some feedback, especially from our elementary staff. do we want to expedite the social studies purchases because those dollars are available? And we might purchase but not implement, at least so then we have those materials. We might delay and say, we just want to wait and do the science and do the math the way we had planned. But I really want to get the feedback from the teachers about what they want to be doing, what they're comfortable with.
So the ESSER funds, something that you have to spend it or it's not available later?
Correct. And so we have until September of 2023 to spend those ESSER dollars. And anything we don't spend goes back to the federal government. And so we're going to spend it all down.
Might as well.
Yep, and so we're going to maximize the general fund savings. And as we've been doing with ESSER 2, we'll continue to allocate like our counseling salaries and, you know, our class size reduction, making sure that we can continue to do what we're doing with 3 sections per grade level. But knowing that that's going to run out. And so we're going to see maybe some savings in general fund, but we've got to be mindful that those savings aren't perpetual. And so the curriculum purchases, the smart board purchases, the salary savings that we can generate, we got to do them in this window. But again, after those ESSER dollars go away, I feel like whether it's casino dollars and moving some of our tech purchases from casino into the PEPL, have set us up for a perpetual cycle for curriculum and materials for teachers to be using with kids.
Right, and what we've tried to do for many things is put us on a schedule rather than trying to have 4 things all at once.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, like we're seeing with science, it's a 6-year contract, but knowing that we're gonna still want access for those 2 years and building that budget. Now, literacy curriculum and math curriculum traditionally are the most expensive. And then science, like Jerry did, you kind of pick and choose with the materials and the manipulatives. But the number of standards, especially in our elementary when it comes to science and social studies, is much less, hence the curriculum is much less. And so that's where we feel like it's really an 8-year cycle for us for core curriculum. And then all of our electives, fine arts, CTE, we're really leaning on those teachers. We don't say no a lot, but we don't want to overspend either in those areas. And so those teachers, especially even in the high school, they do a good job of really, you know, not asking for the sky, but at the same time making sure our kids have those materials that they need to be successful. Try some new things at the same time.
So like with science, this is preschool through 8th grade, are we set pretty well for high school then, or that just is as needed? Is that
Yep.
what you're saying is?
Again, because Bill and Rochelle, you know, I don't want them implementing 3 new curriculums all in 1 year. You know, it might be just a physical science for Rochelle 1 year, and then a biology a couple of years after that. And so we include those high school teachers in the district-wide kind of assessment of all the materials because we want the good linkages from the elementary to the middle school to the high school. But during that same process, you know, Chris Wright for math this next time around says, hey, as we're gonna need new algebra materials for our freshmen, then we'd add that to kind of this review process. If we need the geometry materials, then we'll get that and kind of build that into the same type of schedule.
Do we get spending toward these ESSER dollars?
No, it's all reimbursement. So we basically have to ask for permission to purchase, and then they,
You know,
in and out.
the only thing that would save us is if we would be able to reallocate expenses that were already planned.
Hence the
We've been able to
salaries.
with some of
That's what I
our,
was just thinking, like salaries for example.
right, so that would save on our expenses, it's not actually spending authority, but it's all part of the formula that counts towards spending authority then.
Gotcha.
Any other questions on those? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve those 3 curriculum purchases as listed.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and second to approve the curriculum purchases, all 3 as listed. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item H, consider ARS quote for roof repairs for $10,545.
So again, that's to school building, about $7,800, and then the activity center, about $2,800, about a week's worth of work between both places.
And that's significantly underneath what we had budgeted for this year, but we're gonna be using those funds here to cover some of the
Tech purchases.
repairs, tech purchases, or,
Yep,
okay. right.
yep. You know, again, maybe allows us to do something with our parking lot and some of those other projects that we've talked about that just haven't really pulled the trigger on.
Will we be having kind of like a buildings and ground meeting, like this summer or sometime, just to kind of,
Yep.
we're handling our roof and, we kind of have that plan set up and just to look at a little bit more specifically where we're at and maybe that projection of,
Yeah, my goal is to kind of, I want to get everything done at the softball field, see where all those bills come in at, and then, now that we've got the revised roof kind of schedule, kind of rebuild that, so that then we can, again, build our 5-year plan and really identify some of the projects that we want to focus in on.
I think it'd be good to kind
Yep.
of regroup with buildings and ground a little bit.
Yep. I know my plan is for the fall for us to have a full work session. And before that, the 2 of you, Steve Bresky, myself, and even Curtis, since now we're kind of using the tech, shifted the tech expenses into the PEPAL. I think you guys can go a little bit deeper than the rest of the board and kind of have those conversations.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the roof repairs from the ARS.
Second?
motion and second to approve the quote from ARS for roof repairs, the amount of $10,545. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item I, consider athletic admission prices for 2021-2022.
Again, Siouxland Conference athletic directors proposed raising admission prices going forward. There was conversation about $6 versus $7, moving to what the state is using for online ticketing versus paying cash at the gate. Ultimately, after kind of digging into that, recommendation here is for a $1 increase to both student and adult admission for next school year, and that would start with football and volleyball in the fall, and then carry through for the rest of the activities.
Is there a conference requirement or rule, if you want to call it that, that we are all consistent in how much we charge?
It's not in the Constitution per se. We could have something different. It's just the consistency factor as you go from place to place is
Sure.
what the conference has tried to.
Just historically done.
Yep.
Okay.
I think I put it in here, whether it's the War Eagle Conference or the Lace Conference, those conferences do charge for like junior high or JV games.
So they are currently.
So those conferences are. Our recommendation from the athletic directors is if we're able to increase the cost for just varsity contests, now basketball and volleyball, you're coming and you're paying to see all 3 of those games on those particular nights. But like football, we don't charge for junior high football or JV football on those particular nights. Feel like the $6 just for those varsity contests would be able to kind of make our athletic budgets a little more whole. But that might be something we need to look at 5 years down the line.
Are we gonna be looking at an increase in our activity capacities then too, or?
You know, we did that last year, you know, I would want to keep that consistent. If anything, that might encourage some people to buy an activity pass instead of paying the extra dollar for each event. So I'm not planning on any changes to that.
I had looked at just a simple inflation calculator for, if you put in $5 in 2010, what's that cost in 2021? And it's like $6.12, so it makes sense that $6 is probably the right number for that.
Yep. Some,
However, the counter argument to that might be that football costs, for example, have increased significantly more than
Oh, for sure,
inflation.
for sure, that's a really high level.
Yeah, I agree, I get it. Yeah, costs have probably in those, what we're trying to pay for anyway, have probably gone up.
yep. And the other big thing is basketball, for example. You know, we went from 2 varsity basketball officials to 3 varsity basketball officials. And so our costs for officials are far outpacing the inflation rate. And that's where, you know, even, you know, we have assigners for officials for football and for volleyball, and they basically said, Siouxland Conference, you need to raise what you're paying for officials, because, you know, we got people that say they don't want to come up there because I can drive over here and make $15 more. So, yeah, whether it's equipment, whether it's officials, you know, we're paying our volunteers to do the clock or to work those events. They've just increased.
In the activity tickets, we typically set those prices in July.
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, if there's no more discussion on that one, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the athletic admission prices for this coming year.
A motion and a second to set the price for the varsity athletic contest for $6 for the 2021-2022 school year. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item J, consider board policy.
Yep, so the ISB, this is our quarterly kind of policy updates. That's why we have so many here. Language changes are pretty minor in the review section. Recommendation for number 2 there to policy to rescind is purchasing on the behalf of employees. We don't do that anyways, so I think that's just a recommendation to eliminate that. And then first reading of new policies, kind of the online crowdsourcing, crowd fundraising, donors choose, or so on and so forth. Not that we're against that, we just want people to ask for permission, just don't do it on your own. And then the pay deductions is policy for unpaid leaves and how we're going to deduct that from people's paychecks. Since those two, number 3 are 2 new policies, I'd say let's bring them back so we're being transparent with everybody for next time around. Back in June. Otherwise, 1 and 2, you can, my recommendation would be to waive the second reading of those, since they're just minor language changes.
Thought some of the language on the site acquisition and closed sessions was a little interesting, and how some boards may not want to tip their hand that they're looking for property for X, but it says that unless you have a specific property/parcel that you're looking at, you can't move into closed session for that. It's an interesting tweak there.
Yep.
Okay, so we're looking at potentially waiving the second reading for items 1 and 2, but bringing number 3 back for second reading in June's meeting.
I'll make that motion to approve the policies in 1 and 2, and waive the second reading, and approve the first reading only of the set policies in section 3.
I'll second.
Motion and second, as Mr. Jan stated. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Personnel resignation and hirings, I think we can take those both as one.
Yes, sir. Basically, the hirings are our summer school positions, except for Brittany Kuiper. Mr. Harmon, you want to comment on that one?
Yes, we, if you remember back to our kindergarten hiring, we interviewed 3 different personnel, and we chose one person. From that, we received within days the resignation of our current staff member, and our resignation was last month. I reached out to both of those candidates, and one of them had not taken a position yet, a full-time position for next year. So she, through that process of previously interviewing her, met back with the committee, and they felt very comfortable about offering her a position for TK. And she accepted, so, with the board approval.
Yep.
Where's she from?
She is originally from Seattle, Washington.
Washington State,
Washington
Dork
State.
grade, or
Yeah.
Dork grad.
Right.
I'm for that.
So she currently lives in Orange City, has grandparents from Rock Valley.
New grad, Steve?
Yep.
Yes.
That's 2 of them this year, isn't there? Because
Yes, Spanish teacher as well.
was one of them too. Yeah.
Work your magic, and we want to retain
I had nothing to do with
those
that.
positions.
I don't think
We
they were
hired-
paying me anyway. People look at me and they go, "You did what now? You went where?"
Right.
Oh, but yes, I did.
We want retention.
For it. Where, can I ask, where's Vigdal? I said he was moving out of the area, is that, I
I think his wife is finishing PA school, and so they're moving to the Sioux City area.
okay.
Could I have a motion to approve those 2 items?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the resignation and hirings as listed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Announcements, dates to remember.
Tomorrow night's the PTC Scoop Supper. Weather is a little frightening at the moment, so if we get rain, we'll move from the playground into the elementary gym. But I think there were 47 silent auction items that the PTC's put together, so 5 to 7 tomorrow. Come and have some, I think the cattlemen are grilling, so have a meal, support the PTC. Friday's the last day for students, and then Tuesday's the last day for teachers. And then baseball and softball games start next week. So we do have a home baseball and softball games. Middle school, home baseball and softball on Thursday, high school softball here next Thursday
So in
in Rock Rapids. Yep,
So how many softball games do we have in Rock Rapids this year?
4.
4.
Yep. So 2 next week. And then I think it's like the week of June 20th or something like that. And towards the tail end of the season, or middle of the season, I should say.
And then our middle school, when they have home games, will be using the new
Yep.
field for their games.
Yep, so the middle school started practice this week. We're finishing the dugouts. Dugouts should be done by Friday. Everything, lights and scoreboard and everything should be operable for next Thursday's games, so.
You're starting the softball game, seem later
It'll
than.
be the regular conference time, so
Okay.
I don't know exactly the start time for softball.
We so that first night on the 27th, we should have baseball and softball going on out there at the same time.
Not on
No.
Thursday. There's no home high school baseball game. It's a non-conference game.
Oh, okay,
Yep,
those are both softball and baseball, both middle school.
middle school.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Those are in the morning, and then the high school softball will be
Okay.
by themselves on Thursday and Friday.
Okay,
And then the games later in the season are baseball and softball, high school games.
okay.
Yep.
So one of the questions I had is, as far as committees meeting and work sessions, that kind of thing. Like with the parking lot, I'm assuming were you thinking about doing something about that this year, or would that be next year?
Yeah, most likely next year.
Most likely next year, okay.
Yep.
Because I think, as you mentioned, the meeting in the fall for facility planning, August or September, obviously, Carrie and Joel are
Yep.
gonna meet with you before that, but we have your closed session for review in June.
Yep.
And we also had one of the work sessions scheduled for May or June for District Goal number 4. Do you have any thoughts on tying those together? I think traditionally, the June board meeting has been relatively short. You know. You have thoughts on that?
I'm comfortable with doing both next month if you guys are. Or if you want to look at a second meeting in June.
Any thoughts on that?
What was the other work session you mentioned, Andy?
So, this is the memo Mr. Jorth issued back in December 2020. May or June, family engagement and community relations. So empower families in the community, District Goal number 4. Do we have information to present for that?
You know, I think, went back and forth with the city about us having that joint meeting. You know, I think if we can have that conversation with the city before the 14th, that might be an opportunity to come back and have a conversation about whether we're engaging with the city, our PTC, Booster Club, some of the organizations that already exist, and opportunities to expand that going forward. I know, you know, Scott's on the Booster Club. Here with the foundation, Steve attends the PTC meetings. You know, thinking about how we can engage with those support groups is a good one.
Should we have that meeting or a work session for that District Goal number 4 in July? Or do we have something else?
Yeah, it slips into another
Does it,
work session with District Goals 2 and 3.
oh,
So the vision and mission.
Not that we can't combine them.
yeah, I don't know what makes more sense, if it makes more sense to combine those things in July and just keep his
Yeah.
review separate.
Why don't let's see what the agenda ends up looking like for the 14th. And then we can make a decision early there if we
Most
need to
like-
squeeze them in or punt them till July.
Yeah, most likely we'll have a work session of some sort after both of the next
Right.
meetings.
Yep. Fair enough.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So,
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Sounds like we're there, hey?
yeah, thank you, Joel.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thanks, everybody. A little bit of sunlight left. Some rain.
First time we've seen the sun in like 3 days.
It just needs to come with some rain though, right? I put the pedal to the metal to overseed my yard based on that forecast they had a few days ago. Rain for 5 straight days and then poof, gone. That's great.
Can I say that out over here now?
Yeah.
2-year-olds that are leaving for state track.
Yep.
Do that.
And so I would like to have a little bit of time to
So you're telling me you're not saying for signing bills?
I'm gonna see if they'll each take a couple extra for me.
I'm guessing that's not an issue. It's called delegation, Carrie.
I got it.
Get another one, Joel.
Yeah, no problem.